Welcome to the Bias Media Company podcast. We're your hosts, Slade and John George, with Emma out for tonight. The DNC is over. It is concluded with the Democrats hammering Republicans on their abortion policy, Project 2025, and Donald Trump. In today's episode, we'll be recapping the event and taking a look at where we believe the race goes from here. So, John, DNC's over. What are we thinking? How are we feeling?
I think it's funny that this was an event that 4 months ago nobody was really looking forward to. This was like a night that was like we all knew how this was gonna go. It was gonna be pretty low energy, pretty standard type deal. And then all of a sudden it became the most look forward to night. Just shy of election night.
Yeah, and it was a huge turnaround. Like it's so if Joe Biden had been the president for this whole thing, it would have had a completely different aura.
Right. I think that the energy there was very reminiscent of the first DNC I can remember back in 2008. It was very reminiscent of the DNC that nominated Barack Obama.
Right. Which we did see how that went. Hopefully we'll
Hopefully we're capturing lightning in the bottle twice.
Right.
Big ask, I know, but
right. It does I think it is very reminiscent though. Like the branding that they've been going with since, day 2 it feels like with, the joy. How Kamala Harris brought joy back to the ticket.
And I think that
I think it felt pretty true for these last couple days. It feels very like Hope 2008.
It does. I think there's it's very telling that it's sort of become the idea that we're not going back.
Yeah.
It's a very forward looking event.
Yeah.
And the energy was like we're not going back to how we used to. I think it's like a multi-leveled meaning to it. Like we're not going back to the old way of because let's be honest, Democrats have always been pretty poor at running elections.
Yeah.
The message has usually not been so centered around winning. It feels like sometimes I feel like the Democratic leadership is at times out of touch with modern America, and for the first time, it really feels like
they're paying closer attention.
It really feels like they're listening and they're paying attention, and it's not a bunch of guys.
Funny. Yeah, it's funny to think that like in 1992 that election was decided. Like the key issue was like balancing the budget.
Right.
It was just like something we decided it was really important that year.
Right, and you couldn't do that now.
Yeah.
You couldn't run on that, and then the problem is like that was the platform in 92, and those people that designed and crafted that platform are still in charge of designing and crafting platforms, and it's clear that that's that's not an effective strategy. I think it was very telling that Biden's advisors were telling the Harris campaign to like lay off the weird attack against Donald Trump, when that's
even though it's the best thing that they could have.
That was the best Democratic attack on the Republicans that has been contrived in the history of the Democratic Party. That's the single most effective language, and you have a bunch of these older, old guard Democrats who are like, oh, you can't be doing that. And it's like, no, this is why we lost in 2016. It's the same, like we can't do that again. That we can't go back. And I think Harris is the whole vibe of the DNC this time around was that, hey, we are not going back. We're going to win this thing. We're in it to win this thing.
Yeah, because I think not going back is very effective as a slogan and as something to push for, because it simultaneously attacks Donald Trump for being, regressive and taking us back to not only like uncertain times, but like when things were worse. Like he was trying to roll back, all these protections for women and minorities, while simultaneously offering, a vision that goes forward.
Exactly, and I think even more so, it's recognition that Joe Biden's style of doing politics was heavy on compromise and sitting down and talking with people and
Yeah.
banging out, a deal that would work and satisfy everybody at least a little bit. Everybody would lose
Right.
something, but everybody feel like they got something in return.
Yeah.
When that style of politics is impossible now. The Republican Party has moved so far to the right that compromising them with them is impossible because
Yeah.
we saw time and time again, like Obamacare, which was very nearly killed by Republicans so many times, was a policy that was just picked up from Mitt
A
Romney.
Republican platforms. Yeah.
Right. Like Merrick Garland's was Obama's pick because he was sure that that was the most appealable to Republicans.
Yeah.
Like
And they
it's
still slapped him in the face for it.
that's right.
I mean, there's
That's
no
right.
there's no like banking goodwill.
No, there isn't because these people don't want to play by those rules anymore. Like that's Donald Trump came in and showed the Republicans that the social contract was something that they could just rip up and pretend they never signed,
Yeah.
and they could get away with it. And that's what the DNC and the Democrats by large have been allowing is this enabling even is the ability for Republicans to just get away with stuff by acting in bad faith. I mean like no more is that apparent than in 2016 with Michelle Obama saying when they go low we go high,
Right.
and then when we went high they just kicked us in the shins. And so
Yeah.
now, and I
But I
think that
do
it's a stark difference.
Yeah, I think this DNC is very representative of a different strategy. There were so many, you know, gloves off attacks on Donald Trump. They hammered him for being a convicted felon, being liable for sexual assault, um, just everything. Like they're just throwing the book at him in every way that they can. I think the first night, which was one of the strongest nights in my opinion, um, laid a really good groundwork for that. They had the UAW leader there, who made a very convincing case about Donald Trump being bad for workers and how he's not, like they're not the kind of like he is not going to represent these people. Um, and then along with that, like Raphael Warnock had really strong attacks. AOC did. Um, Jasmine Crockett. I think those three really, for me, kind of took the night home for night one. Great speeches. Really went after Trump, and I think that momentum kind of carried the DNC for the next couple days.
No, exactly. I think that really set the tone.
Mm-hmm. And like the contrast with how Biden handled these same things, like uh, I'm forgetting his name. The UAW leader, Sean Fain, I think that's it. Um, he is able to contrast Trump stiffing every single person that's ever worked for him versus Biden, who stood with protesting workers, right? Like he held a picket line um, a year ago, and that's a strong comparison. Like that I think that goes a long way, especially for the base of people that Republicans want to claim they represent. Like it's important to undermine that.
Exactly. And I think that not only does it underline that, but it really shows that who actually does support workers in this country.
Right.
I mean, despite the fact that, the head of the Teamsters Union wasn't invited to speak and the fact that he did speak at the RNC, um, despite that, it's overwhelmingly clear.
Yeah, and they had they had Teamsters members with the UAW workers. I don't. Did you notice that?
I did, yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that goes to show that this was more of a fluke in terms of the Teamsters union and their leadership and who they were going to throw their weight behind
Hmm.
politically. I think this is a misstep and could spell, you know, really the ends of this guy's career for the
Hmm.
fact that he went to the RNC and spoke to people that were never going to listen to him.
Hmm. Yeah. So I thought that was great. Hillary Clinton also spoke that night. Meh. I don't know. I can't say
Yeah,
I really like listening to Hillary that much. Either
right,
which
right.
way.
I think
Um.
I I don't know. It's one of those things where I think just think it's funny because 8 years ago she was the first woman nominated by the Democratic Party,
Mhm.
um, and obviously we all saw how that went. And I think there was a lot of writing on the wall as to where her campaign was going, and I feel like that very same writing isn't present for Harris.
Yeah. I also noticed that I don't know, I mean, especially just listening to Hillary Clinton's speech, Kamala highlights herself being a woman so much less than Hillary Clinton does, and I think it works so much better.
Right, right. I think
like I
because
mean,
again,
also
Harris.
every time Hillary Clinton did that, she'd be talking about herself, which I think also didn't help her.
Right,
Um,
right. I
even
think it
even in her
definitely.
speech, even on Monday, she spent most of her speech talking about herself. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, this is. I think it's. I think it's just telling that this is why this campaign didn't win, and that why the people behind messaging for that campaign, who have been behind messaging for a lot of the Democratic Party for the last 20 years, has really fallen flat.
mhm.
And because like you said, Harris moved away from that same sort of talking. She didn't really drive home, oh, look at how historical this is going to be.
Right.
She came in with substance
Mhm.
and with things that she wanted to do. And while there was a sort of a bit of a pivot to the center that's not necessarily unexpected, I think it's important to remember the purpose of the Democratic National Convention.
Mhm.
This is, it's while yeah, it is the party selecting its nominee officially and getting everything set up for the general election. It's
I mean,
also
it's a party for libs, right?
right, right. It's a party for liberals. It always was going
They
to
want to
be.
get their base. They want to get their base riled up.
Right.
Um,
And they did. And I mean, I gotta be honest, there were moments where I was watching this
yeah,
and I was like, hell yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, let's go
yeah.
Democrats. I mean,
It is. It's kind of hard not to be sometimes.
it really is, and it
When
really
the
is. It's
Obamas go back to back, all my social democratic criticisms just start to fly out the window. I feel
right.
them leaving.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's the same way that I felt watching the Olympics.
Right. It's like
It's like,
ne- never call myself a strong patriot, but
but right now, absolutely, and that's
yeah.
and that's sort of the whole point of the DNC is to rally the base, get them all riled up. I tried to say both at the same time, riled and rallied, but and that's what it did, and it was very effective. I mean, the roll call vote was a lot of fun to watch.
It
It
was
was very
fun.
high energy, especially
Like,
compared to the RNCs.
yeah, screw me, man. The libs can put on a show sometimes.
Right, exactly. I mean, especially the good state of Georgia.
Yeah, bringing out Little John there.
That's right. I
Not on
lost
my
it.
not on my bingo card for the
No,
DNC
it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
2024. Did you make that joke? Did I steal that from you?
No, no. I feel like I would
Okay.
never make a bingo card joke. I feel like those are so overplayed.
Ah,
Like,
so you didn't
like
respect. Alright. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't respect because it's such a millennial joke, like, oh, that wasn't on my bingo card. Like, okay, all
When was the last
right,
time you been to bingo?
right, yeah. When was the last time I went to bingo actually was like 3 weeks ago, but that's a
Oh,
cultural
really?
thing. That's a
How'd it
cultural
go?
thing. That's us natives have bingo night on lock. You don't
Mhm.
understand. Like that's practically ceremony at this point.
Right.
It's part of our culture.
Um, alright, so night 2, I saw a lot less of, honestly. I thought I had seen more of it, and then I saw the whole list of who had spoken, and I was like, "Holy crap." And not I definitely did not listen to all these people,
Right.
speak. Um, but Bernie Sanders gave a pretty rousing
Classic.
speech. Yeah,
Classic. Love the man. I think he's half the reason why I'm here talking about politics,
yeah,
which
yeah,
I think is a constant story for our generation.
yeah, I almost went to go meet Bernie Sanders, like, a week ago.
Yeah, I know.
I
Like
was so
I
bummed out.
actually
I literally got COVID the night before and
I
couldn't
know,
go. I
I
was
know.
so disappointed.
Actually I almost had the opportunity to meet Bernie Sanders too back in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
So he was going around and he was during the primary he was going and he was talking to the different tribes across the country. He met with a lot of the tribes and the chiefs and whatnot, and he came to Syracuse and he met with
Nice.
Yanadaga, and I like begged my dad. I was like, because his uncle um was on the tribal council at the time, and I was like, I begged. Like, I don't ask you for anything, old man, but please get me in the room.
Let me
And
see Bernie.
and he just never opened my text. So yeah, no, I mean, like, Bernie Sanders is very much iconic, and
Yep.
and this always gives a great speech. I don't think the man has ever missed in terms
Yeah.
of giving speeches. Like, obviously, in the years since, I've become critical of Sanders and in some of his views towards women. He tends to have this problem where he doesn't think women can win in elections.
Mhm.
At least that was kind of the vibe he gave me, especially uh,
Yeah, I feel like I remember that at some point. He, like, didn't endorse some candidate or something at one point, right?
right, and he
Something
was really
weird
slow
happened.
to endorse Harris, and he's like, because she can't win, and I'm like, Bernie, really?
Mhm.
Because I feel like out of anybody right now in the field, Harris was like,
The clear front
Harris was
runner.
the clear front runner. Like, I mean, I voted for Bernie in the 2016 and then 2020 primaries.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I didn't vote for him in the 2020 primary because he was out of the race because, DNC shenanigans. Um, but, like, I supported him, and, like, if he was 20 years younger,
Yeah.
I still
It
don't think I would have. I feel like it would have been an absolutely bloody mini primary, and that would have been bad. We would have lost.
yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Um, so one thing that was kinda hanging over the whole DNC, which, I think that we all felt, is Gaza.
Right.
And I don't know, I think if anything, this DNC just makes it so obvious, like, how how controlled the messaging is on Gaza.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I think the fact that Harris did in her speech talk about how the people of Gaza have the right to self-determination,
yeah,
which is, it's
fine.
more than the Republicans said. It's not perfect because I mean, she also said that Israel has the right to defend itself, which
Yeah,
I
right.
mean,
Like
like
she can't even she
to
can't
really
even
get
say
into
Gaza without you know gassing up Israel for 4 lines before that.
I I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think there's any other way to play it in this political climate. I mean, like
I kind of agree.
you
I
and
mean,
I are very passionate about, the ongoing genocide that is happening and how it needs to end.
yeah,
But in terms of numbers for the wider Democratic Party, people don't care.
I don't know.
Um,
Like I don't think it's a losing issue for her to for
no, it's not, but it's not a winning issue either to go too far the other direction. Um,
maybe.
Because I think no, I am serious. I think that the numbers have shown that like this is what you would categorize as a fringe issue for like the mainstream electorate of this country. And if you
Well, we can.
swing too far into talking up, I feel like the relationship between Israel and anti-Zionism being interpreted as anti-Semitism is too strong. I'm not saying again, I'm not saying that this is right. I'm just saying this is how it is. Um, and I feel like that's just it's too they're too tied together that I feel
Yeah,
like
I agree with you on a lot of this, and maybe we can talk about this um, a little more later, just so we can hit more topics. But I don't know. Like I think that one, the arms embargo is probably the most obvious solution to this. And that's something that most Americans are in favor of. Most Democrats, I'm pretty sure. And that doesn't do anything to address, the fundamental uh uh inequality that exists in the Israeli Palestine um region of the world, like like you like what's happening in the West Bank with settlements. Obviously, like I'm sure that you and I would love to have our Democratic candidate go up on stage and talk about those issues. Never gonna
right,
happen. Um, at least not now. Um, but I mean, the most they can do is say we're working on a ceasefire, right? Which is the same thing
right.
that we've been hearing for 10 months, and I think that everyone's pretty tired of that messaging. I don't know. I don't think you need to go too hard into. Well, I don't know. I understand the bind that they're in for sure. Like,
Right.
there's definitely it's a multifaceted, pretty complex thing to dissect right now, right? Um,
Exactly. I think it's because if you look at the numbers and you look at the statistics and the breakdowns of everything, Muslim Americans in this country, who a stronger pro Gaza liberation message may or may not again, because this is not an issue that is black and white to most of the country.
sure, but
Um,
most people can agree on a ceasefire
oh
or
yeah,
conditioning aid.
without a doubt, and I think that there's only one party that's going to give you because I mean,
Any
like
hope of that? Yeah,
right, because Trump has actively been sabotaging the peace talk. Like he's admitted to calling up Netanyahu and telling him not to take any deals, which is illegal. It's like a violation of the Logan Act. It's a federal offense, but it's a bad. If you're a Palestinian, it's a bad choice. You get the guy
yeah,
who is going to you know if you want an arms embargo, Donald Trump is not going to deliver an arms embargo. He's going to sell more weapons to the Israelis to an even greater degree. And I think that, one of the
yeah. I
biggest
think that's
lines of
true, but
attacks.
it's the large movement to that is, with the uncommitted movement, is that's not good enough, right?
No, it's not.
And
No, it isn't. It isn't enough.
um,
There won't be. I don't think there will
I know
be ever a point in where it will be enough, and I think that we're going to be very ashamed of our role in this 10, 20
yeah,
years from now.
yeah.
Um,
As of this moment, like I do kind of understand why they were so cautious to um mention Gaza and how they didn't even have a Palestinian speaker, right? Even though the
right,
uncommitted movement leaders met with them, and that was kind of what they were thinking would be on the table. Um,
exactly, because this
but
was a party for
I do
libs.
think that at some point, true, true.
This was a party for
Um,
libs.
I do think at some point though, like Kamala Harris is probably going to have to depart from Biden's strategy, and I think that maybe that comes closer to the election. Um,
I think it comes after
but
the
I
election
think it would be an electoral. Yeah, I mean,
because
maybe you just keep on indicating that maybe something will be different, and then you get in there and maybe do more.
right,
Um,
because she can't break with the president while she's his vice president. That's especially since with how much goodwill Joe Biden has given himself by stepping aside. It's it would be a cardinal sin to the hardcore uh lib DNC like that would be an unforgivable sin.
True,
And
but I think they would still vote for her because at the
maybe
end, like those are the people that are gonna vote liberal almost every time.
are they though? I mean, like we if you look at 2008, um Hillary Clinton, when she was running against Barack Obama in the primary, had a lot of DNC backing at that point too. She was seen as a clear favorite for a very long time,
Hmm.
and the number of Clinton, uh, McCain voters was
Was pretty high.
proportionally higher than the Sanders Clinton voters in 2016. So I think there's a bit of a history of these people going back and picking the other option because they didn't get their
True,
way.
but their other person is Donald Trump, right? Like these guys hate January 6th probably more than
Right.
anyone in the country.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
I mean,
mean,
I'll just say that like, um, I mean, even in Kamala Harris's speech when she did mention Gaza, and this was also throughout multiple speakers in there when they reached that point in their speech, it was the biggest applause that they got, right?
right.
Um, I don't know. I think the bigger problem is APAC. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the group they really don't want to upset.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too much foreign money into our political electoral process.
You know,
Um, and that's a problem that needs to be solved. And again, who do you think is going to solve that?
hey
It's not
man,
going to be Donald Trump.
you don't need to convince me not to vote for Trump.
Oh, I know, but I do need to convince you to vote for Harris, and I think that that's like like as bad as things are, and as bad as things may very well continue to be, they're going to be so much worse. And it's important not to lose sight of that. And I do think that like the criticism of Harris is important. It's important to keep down that external pressure and to be like, hey, you need to do something about this.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
also
Well,
important to recognize that that pressure is only as good as long as we have leverage, and we're not going to have that if Project 2025 becomes our reality.
you and we're with each other on that for sure. Um, and I think the Democrats did a great job hammering that home. I have to say, like, I don't know why the attacks on Trump, like, for so long, it's just felt like Trump has had such a bulletproof shield that, like, all the criticism of him just, like, falls aside. Um, but it really feels like it's getting through this time. Um,
Yeah,
like, I think Democrats constructed a really good, they crafted this narrative of, like, he's weird, right? Obviously, we've seen that the last the last month or so, and they did a good job of turning that into he's weird, but he's also dangerous at this DNC.
Right.
Right, like that was a
And I
big theme of I don't remember who where that initially seemed to set in. But I think that there was a good they did a good job of depicting Trump as, the whiny, spoiled child that he is, and that if he got his hands on the keys again, it would be really bad for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they did that very well. I think I mean, it's not even just Trump either. It's JD Vance is weird. I mean, did you see the JD Vance going into a donut shop and
No.
having like the most? He went in for so he went in at a campaign stop to a donut shop for like a very clear, like this was supposed to be a very easy photo op, you know.
Right.
And he just has the most awkward, weirdest time.
Oh my god.
It was like immediately the first person that came in is like, I don't want to be on camera. And so they did blur out the person's face. And then he tried to make small talk about the donuts, and he was just not it was like I've had like it was just it was reminiscent of just a bad date, you know? And
Oh man,
it's so
I got
funny.
some I've got some catching up to do. I love the JD Vance content. That
I
man is whoa.
like if
Yeah,
you
it's
told me
so
that
funny.
JD Vance.
Wasn't there some meme about JD Vance in a donut shop before that? But just the thought of him walking around what's it called, twiddling his thumbs, looking at all the donuts, you know?
Yeah, that's what he
He's like,
did.
ooh.
That's what he did. If you told me that, like, you know, that JD Vance the whole time was like, you know, some weird comedic bit that
Secret
somebody was
communist.
doing,
Yeah,
the secret
or a communist
communist. Um,
deep off.
I don't know who's who, like Nathan Fielder, right? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
the guy behind Nathan for You. If you told me that like
Yeah.
JD Vance was
He
a
was on a TV
publicity
show
stunt,
that had gone
right?
way too far.
That it had gone way too far. I would believe that. I think that
I
would be
actually
like
got
that would
elected as
be
senator, so I decided to keep on going with it. I decided to continue the bit.
right, but it's a weird bit, and he's a weird guy,
Yeah, he's
and
a
I
weird
think
little dude.
he really
Um,
is, and I think that line of attack is really working. I did enjoy Obama's dick joke. I can't believe that happened,
yeah,
but that
people
was
love that dick joke.
people
That
loved
was
it.
good though.
The crowd side, I mean, it was a great joke, and it's like, you know,
Yeah.
if we had that same energy in 2016, maybe things might have gone differently. But
Um,
it
yeah.
was a great
Also,
time. It was
again,
a
a
great
very
party.
valid attack, and I think that was something that was kind of hammered in was how Trump has just been deranged the last month or so. And the crowd size stuff really is just it's so old.
Right. And
Right.
he keeps having because he keeps having breakdowns on his Truth Social
Yeah.
and crying about it. Like he's actively like the
Yeah.
man is so bothered by
Yeah.
everything. It would be sad if it weren't extremely hilarious that a former US president is like every time he's doing this.
He posts a fanfic about Joe Biden storming the
Right.
DNC.
Right. He's got the perfect enemies to lovers routine down
Yeah.
perfectly in his head. I imagine he's like sitting down somewhere in his underwear, like in the middle of the night on his phone, typing out these absolutely deranged meltdowns on a social media platform he owns and
Yeah, and maybe
operates.
he's the only one on? Question mark.
Right, right. Question mark.
Um,
Does anybody use Truth Social? I don't know. I don't know. Have you seen his crowd
um,
sizes lately? They're bad.
yeah, and so it seems like this DNC was really the Democrats pointing this out and also pointing out that it's old, right? Like, we're tired of this guy. Um, this guy first entered the public eye like this almost 10 years ago, and he's been doing the exact same thing like for the last 10 years,
Yeah.
and people are sick of it. And I think that
He's a
merged really
one.
well. And I think it's merged really well with the, we won't go back, that like it's like let's put Trump behind us, right? I think Obama said that during his speech. And that really feels like the vibe, right? For a lot of, like, for especially the type of voter that we're trying to get, where it's, people that are sick of Joe Biden being the president and sick of Donald Trump and really did not want that to be the rematch in 2024. Like, I think it's pretty great messaging to like present Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as such a big contrast between like this guy that we are just so tired of seeing and like having be so central to our politics.
Exactly, exactly, because his brand of politics is just so toxic and weird. Like
Yeah.
the guy is just they're just weird. Like, I mean, immediately after, or I mean, even during the DNC, right wing conservative pundits were immediately going after, the kids of the
Hmm.
candidates. Like, Governor
Yeah.
Walz's son, like, and Coulter of all people went after him for showing emotion. There were attacks against Harris's stepdaughter,
Yeah.
for, like, supporting their
Their
parents,
dad.
their
Yeah, their
dad or
parents.
their
But
stepmom, right? Or
yeah,
being happy for them, or, like, being just normal
a
people.
human. Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Um,
just shows how I mean, because, like, if you remember, like, if you remember 2016, Barron Trump was off limits. Like, nobody was like, it was taken in poor form if you ever said anything against, the literal child, one of Trump's
right.
children, who was a child at the
Right.
time. I do think that there has been some stuff that has come out since he's reached adulthood about how he might be a psychopath.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, there was a story, I can't remember which outlet it was, but it was one of those reputable ones from like
Right.
a
Right.
from like a nanny for the Trump family that was saying, "Oh yeah, when Barron was a child, he allegedly enjoyed torturing small animals and stuff like that,
Oh my god.
and was just like really a terrible, terrible kid to deal with." Um,
He does seem
which
kind of. I don't know. We don't really know much about Barron. It seems
Right,
like
right, and
we're
he's like, he's an adult now.
right.
I feel like he was raised in an environment that you can't walk away from and be normal and
Not.
adjusted, which is,
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
look at Don and Eric, Don Jr. and
Yeah.
Eric. They're
Yeah.
it's
And those are the people you have to look up to if
right,
you're Barron.
right. And I mean, like, Barron Trump is named after Donald Trump's PR persona when he was pretending to be his own publicist. So it's like, the guy was cooked it was over from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
Melania is not some bastion of empathy
No, I feel like she just did
herself.
not want. She just did not want to be involved in this at all. I think,
No, no.
like from day one, she just like did not want her husband to be the president.
Right, because she just wanted to get through. I imagine she just wanted to get through life, living in style and in
And
relative
then when
wealth, and
and
not
have
having
Trump
to do any of
die,
this
yeah,
stuff.
and then
Right,
inherit.
yeah. Whatever money he may or may not have.
Right. Yeah,
And I think,
could be dead at this point.
like, I imagine, like, this was just Trump running for office and then winning was a nightmare scenario
Yeah.
for her.
It's
Like,
kind of
this
a nightmare
was
scenario for Trump too.
it really is.
I
I
don't know if
mean,
he really wanted this to be president.
I think he wanted the prestige of the job and he didn't actually want to do it. I feel like that's like a common
Yeah.
thing. That's like
Oh,
something that
definitely.
I've met a lot of people in even like minor positions of power. Like, when we went to college, we had people, running student government, who
Yeah,
were
I'm
like,
gonna.
it's clear that you did not want to do this job, you just wanted this for your resume.
Yeah.
And I think that I think that that's sort of the same vibe that Trump was working off of, because it's such a white person thing to do.
Yeah.
It's like the peak of, okay, I'm gonna do this little dumb president gig for a little bit, and everybody's gonna love me, and it's gonna be fantastic, and I'm gonna get so much out of it. And it's like, wait, you mean this is a job? What are you talking about? I
I have
have
to
to
run the
work.
free world.
I have to run the free world, and then and to his
It's fine,
credit,
but if I can't golf every single day,
right? To his credit, though,
it's
he
not
he
happening.
he delegated running the free world to Germany. He like, let's crash the United States into the ground so fast that I can golf all day, and he did it. He did
God
it,
damn it!
and that I think is the
Like a
most positively.
true American hero.
That's right. He figured out how to do the least amount of work in the most stressful job in the country, in the world, perhaps. He figured it out.
You
And
figured
you
it
know what?
out.
And he, like Bush before him, and I think that's a commonality between
Um.
the past few Republican presidents, because
Yeah. True.
look how much Barack Obama aged in 8 years.
Yeah.
Whereas Bush looks the exact same as he did in 2000, and the man oversaw 9/11 in two separate wars that came out as a result of it. And he
Yeah.
looks younger than.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Funny thing that who the Republicans nominate.
it really is.
Anyway, last big thing for today is probably that RFK dropping out of his campaign. He has endorsed Trump, but his name's going to stay
No
on the
surprise.
ballot apparently in many states, not the swing states, is what he said during his hour-long press conference of complete rambling and nonsense. This guy, by the way, like, I think he might actually be insane. I don't know. Like,
I imagine the
I think-
brainworms might have to do something about it. There's probably still one rolling around up there.
So I don't know, just to cap this, yeah. So he's dropping out. He's staying on the ballot in multiple states. I'm curious which states those are going to be, because that might actually be, that might actually come into play. I mean, I think Texas was looking really close if RFK was in the race.
Right, right. I mean, Texas has been leaning purple.
Yeah.
The last two
it has.
cycles. I really do think
has.
that we should abandon any hope we have for Florida and push those resources into Texas.
I agree.
Because the Democratic Party seems obsessed, because Obama won it one time, with thinking that Florida is a swing state, and it's not.
It's definitely not anymore.
I don't know. I feel like RFK's whole run was just incredibly sad. It was a lame press, but I can't imagine that his dad, wherever his dad is, whatever you believe in, is too proud of his kid for that. Like, how do you go from that,
so.
from Bobby Kennedy to RFK Jr. and just
I mean, it seems like, I think it seems like a fucking off.
It almost does, yeah.
I don't know.
And
so
I think that
to the people that like had faith in the RFK campaign, I don't know, we're kind of rallying behind him. I don't know, like what I would say about him is that everything on his website looks great. Love it, right? Seems like a great progressive candidate. But every single time this guy speaks, all he wants to do is parrot in conspiracy theories. And it's nonsense. Like, he brings up these things like his speech today was heavily centered around the rise in chronic illness, which he attributes to I don't know, presumably vaccines, and
because of course he does.
Right, without looking at the fact that a lot of people can't afford health care, or that a lack of regulation means that food companies can give us a bunch of poisonous crap. And these are things that like he should be bringing up on his own. and he'll like gesture towards these things, but doesn't provide any kind of systemic solution to these problems or even like surface level solutions. Like it's just that like all he can say is that like once he's president, like it'll be staffed like the executive branch will be staffed correctly and that'll solve all the problems.
I
And
think
to all these
it's
candidates, sorry, just to like
yeah, go ahead.
wrap up this little rant, you can't just agree with a candidate on the problems that they identify. You have to agree on the way on what they have to say to fix these problems, right? Like um Donald Trump can correctly identify that people are kind of fed up with this liberal establishment and they don't want these elitists running the country and it needs to be a change of guard. Doesn't mean that Donald Trump has the solutions, right? Um,
Exactly.
and I think that's what we need to look for in these kind of outsider candidates. I mean, that's the difference between Bernie Sanders and both these clowns is that he actually can identify problems and he'll produce good policy that will address some of these things.
Exactly. I think because like I don't think there's a viable path for any third party candidate. Uh
Mm-hmm.
Period. I think RFK. I think the whole genesis of his campaign very much lies in because I mean the guy's a conspiracy nut job.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um
and that's what
and
he ran his campaign on. Like
right,
that's if he had actually campaigned on taking down big pharma, breaking up some of these monopolies in like food and pharma and I mean all kinds of things, like I would probably like him more. But
right.
instead, all he can do is deal in these conspiracy theories.
And I think that that's because that's who his base is the QAnon folks who were believing that
Right.
JFK
Well,
was going to come back from the dead and like no seriously that was
yeah.
like
I mean, yeah.
that was
No,
the genesis of his campaign and it's like he is about he that crowd was always going to leave him for Donald Trump anyway. I don't think the
right.
numbers shift
But
enough to make too much of an impact on the race.
he's still like I don't know, like the way he styled himself at the beginning of his campaign. I mean, he's still the conspiracy stuff, but like I mean, he ran as a Democrat initially, and he was much more about like showing off that he was an environmental lawyer that had a pretty good record, and that those were his priorities. And like that stuff would be good on paper if he then just didn't then turn around and spoil it with conspiracy theories. Like I feel like
Right.
it just kept on growing as he went on.
Which I
Um,
think I think that really solidifies him as nothing more than an opportunist, which
yeah,
there
I mean, I
is
think so
no
too.
shortage of in American politics. I mean, look at Jill Stein, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm gonna take a shot at Jill Stein here.
do it, do it.
Jill Stein, who pops up once every 4 years
Yep.
just to run against the Democrats, to siphon votes away. I mean, because she's a Russian op. Like, let's be honest. I mean, like, seriously, like she's pictured sitting at a table with, Michael Flynn, the disgraced
Yeah.
former general, Vladimir Putin, at like an Russia Today media dinner. She pops up
Yep.
once every 4 years. She doesn't organize at any point during the time to get Greens in any office.
Yep.
She comes in, she grifts, she takes money from well-intentioned progressives who are disillusioned with the Democratic Party,
Hmm.
siphons away votes, disappears for 4 years, comes back.
Yeah.
She's like, because that's the one who I keep seeing as like the alternative to Harris. Like, um,
What about Jill Stein?
yeah,
Yeah,
Jill
I mean
Stein,
that definitely just screams like opportunist to me. I don't think that she's serious about winning. I don't think she's serious about changing any of the issues she campaigns on. Like she's a spoiler
like
candidate.
Gaza, like the fact that she has come out and campaigns with the solution for with calling for an arms embargo and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I don't think there's any intention of her actually following through with anything because one, she's not
I mean,
going to
she's just
win.
not
There
gonna.
isn't
Yeah,
a
she's not
world
gonna
in
get
which she's
elected
going to
president.
get more than like a couple percentage points of the vote. But also, she's a Russian asset at the end of the day. Her whole gig is to destabilize the country and get her bag, and that's what she's
Yeah.
done. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always transparency documents whenever you run for office about who you invest in and stuff. In surprise, surprise, Jill Stein invests in cigarette companies, tobacco companies,
Nice.
and gas companies and stuff like that. Like this woman is all about getting paid, and she only has to work once every 4 years
Yeah.
for a couple of months. She's not. She's
Yeah.
see like RFK is not a serious alternative to any branch of any party
Yeah. Well,
in
I
our
will say that
politics.
like I think I think RFK is a little bit I think he deceptively pulls from independent people maybe more than you might think. Like mainly just because like I don't know, it's literally the Rogan sphere is
Right.
like where his a lot of his support comes from. Um and I mean I think most people are probably gonna go Trump.
Oh
Um
yeah. Oh yeah.
but they might not too, you know, like I don't think Joe Rogan has endorsed Trump. I think he's been like fairly critical of him, and it's definitely I think it's just become kind of cringe to like Trump at this point, which I
Right.
think genuinely is going to like pull away people that have voted for Trump in the last couple election cycles.
Which is why I think that the line of attack that Trump is weird is so effective. Is that because
Hmm.
Trump has become cringe to support.
Hmm.
Like MAGA people are cringe. Like they do cringy
Yeah,
stuff. They're always
especially if
they're
they're still
weird.
with him now. It's like, dude,
That's the world we live in, I guess.
yeah. So I don't know. Do you think the RFK endorsement's going to matter much?
No.
Yeah, I for a little bit I thought it might to some degree, but I think it would be hard to like the polls aren't going to stay the same from here to November, even if RFK was in, and
Right.
like obviously his strategy is going to change depending on I don't know, just as it becomes more apparent that he's going to lose. So I don't know. I think this is pretty much inevitable.
I mean, he was polling at what 0 to 1%. He was in that margin
Um,
for
in the states where I saw him as a where he's like a potential spoiler candidate, he is getting like 3% of the vote,
right, right. But as Harris moves
which is
closer and
significant.
closer to, it is significant. But as Harris moves closer and closer to, having and being in the 5 to 10%
Hmm.
in some places, like there's going to be states where that really matters, and I think that there's enough time because I think Donald Trump is polling at the highest he's going to poll at. I don't think Donald Trump is going to be winning over people. There aren't new people he can pull from. His
Yeah,
coalition is
I mean,
locked in.
I just don't know I don't know what he does from here to the election.
I think he loses and he cries that it's fake and he hopes that the House and the Senate go Republican and they try and steal it again. That's I honestly think that might be the strategy.
I think that's not too far off either. I think the Republicans are probably fucked. Also, though, this race is a lot closer than it feels it is,
Right, right.
and I don't know, these Democrats they have to be vigilant.
They do. They do.
And
It's
I
it's
think they
not
need to go further left, but
I do
and continue
too.
to appease that base
I do too.
because I mean, like if the peak of their popularity is like when Joe Biden drops out and then Tim Walz gets put on the ballot, like it's because left wing young people are excited.
Right, right. And I think
You
that the
know, and
fact
that's
that,
when you got a channel.
I think that the fact that they went with Walls and that AOC was a featured speaker at the DNC showed that they're aware of that
Yeah.
and that they're
Yeah,
going to
and I
do
think
that.
and I think
That's their winning
economic
strategy.
policies were pretty good. I think they were another good step in the right direction.
Right. Exactly. I mean, like there was like you could see how they were trying to appeal to both with different lead-ins. You have
Yeah.
Harris being like, securing the border and stuff like that, which is strange. But like you understand it if it's like, okay, this is trying to appeal to the swing state people who are convinced there's migrant caravans every time
Yeah.
Democrats are up in the polls.
Yeah. He also
Um,
described our military. as the most lethal in the world, which was interesting. And
Is
I wasn't really a fan of that.
that I mean, like, yeah, no, of course not. But is that an opinion, or is that like, that it's we have the largest military in the world? That feels like that's just more.
It's a different word, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. I think it's just bravado. I think it's part of the, appealing
Yeah, the
to,
shtick.
yeah, because
Appealing to Mark Kelly.
exactly. I think that, like the biggest criticism that Republicans are going to use against terrorists that's going to ring true with a portion of swing voters is, that Harris is too soft.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
she comes
I
in.
think that really was what they were trying to shore up, especially with her speech.
I agree.
Um,
That's what I saw it as. I didn't see it as anything
yeah,
other than that.
yeah,
Because again,
that's fair.
this is a party for libs, and libs love playing the game almost as
They
much as they
do.
love losing it.
Hey man, if they can, if they lose but played a good game, they're happy,
Right, right.
and that's the problem.
Right, but the fact that I mean that was Joe Biden's whole thing for staying in, and that changed. Something changed.
Yeah,
Who knows? Maybe Nancy Pelosi is in the works right now.
yeah.
Maybe
We
she's
need
got
to
something brewing.
decommodify housing now.
That's could you imagine like Nancy 5 years of her career going full Lenin?
No, I couldn't.
I mean like I could not, but still.
Oh man.
Part of me likes the
The
image
idea,
that that
yeah.
gives, just because of how funny that would be.
It's all been a play for this.
That's right. Everybody's doing it's the problem is that both parties are doing weird comedy bits, and this is just we're in that era of the Democratic Party. Like, what if we actually did try doing something
Good
crazy
thing.
for a little bit?
Yeah,
Like, they were gonna call us communists anyway. Might as well.
right. Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun with it.
Nancy Pelosi's like, "Come on, Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi,
Let's have a good
slayer of Joe Biden's reelection campaign.
Let's have some fun out the door."
Right? The kids will figure it out. We got to get the kids on board. What do kids love these days? Socialism and TikTok. And we took TikTok away.
All right, so we're
So,
gonna yeah, we
so
banned one of those things. So,
we banned one of those things. We might as well give them the other.
and we're all out of TikTok.
And we're.
All right.
All right.
Anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think we're all set for today.
All right. Well, to the viewers out there, I don't know. Watch a JD Vance clip before you go to bed tonight. You get some. Stay entertained. Stay engaged.
That's how we're gonna win this. Every time
Yeah,
JD Vance walks into a donut shop and awkwardly
you
asks for a
have to
dozen
mention
glazed
it.
donuts, we go up in the polls 1
Oh
point,
man,
half a point.
he really can't do anything without being a
He
total
really
pawn.
can't. He
Like
really
he's just
can't.
allergic to taking a W.
The man his negative riz.
His negative riz is off the charts.
It's off the charts. We've never seen anything like this before, folks. It is truly. This man was truly made in a conservative lab with people who don't know how to talk to other people.
And then Tim Walz made in the other lab of how can we produce the most ideal American.
Right. The most hell yeah of a candidate we've had for the office of vice
Big.
president, God knows how long.
Oh my god, out of vice presidents. Yeah, it's been a minute on that one.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
All right. Well, I think that's our show for tonight.
That's right.
And
For listening, and good
yeah.
night.